Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the GD Report. I am D.
And I'm G. Welcome,
And
everybody.
welcome everybody back. It's been a busy few days since inauguration, and it's been a little bit different feel for us as a country from a standpoint that I don't wake up in the morning and wonder what the hell the President of the United States put on Twitter. Haven't had to have that worry for a while. But we've got a lot of things to talk about on tonight's show. So starting off, we're going to talk about the impeachment trial for former President Donald John Trump, which starts a week from tomorrow. G-Man, why don't you tell us what's the latest on the impeachment?
Yeah, well, Mr. Trump's response to the charges is due tomorrow. And over the weekend, he fired his staff, or his legal staff quit, depending on who you choose to believe, because the lawyer said he was focused on bringing up election fraud as the main topic of his defense. And they basically told him, that doesn't have any bearing on what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And so they couldn't make any headway, so they quit. So he hired a couple of attorneys that basically are on the fringe of the wacky right. So one of his lawyers, let me just get his name real quick here. Bruce Castor Jr. He's a former district attorney in Pennsylvania, and he's going to be the lead attorney. Well, Mr. Castor, as it turns out, has come under fire for, in 2005, he declined to prosecute Bill Cosby on sexual assault allegations. And the reason he gave for that is because he did not file charges against Cosby in this agreement if Cosby agreed to not plead the Fifth Amendment in a civil case from one of his accusers. So basically, he cut this deal so Cosby wouldn't plead the Fifth, so this accuser could, win her case, basically. He also represented Roger Stone, and he was in talks to represent Jeffrey Epstein, and has maintained that Epstein was murdered. So it remains to be seen what they're going to do with the case, whether they're going to bring, voter fraud in at all. The early reports are they're going to focus on, is this constitutional to try a non-sitting president? Is that constitutional? That seems like that's where their main focus is going to be. But I'll bet you dollars to donuts they bring in election fraud in there somehow.
Yeah, that's his obsession. He doesn't want to let it go, and the stories I've read have been that his focus has been on finding legal representation who will put the case forward that he wants, not what they recommend for him to get exonerated. I think he feels like he's going to get exonerated, and the way the vote stands right now, probably. But I will tell you this, that the preparation that the House litigants from the House of Representatives are putting together, I've heard it's super compelling. They've got video, body cameras that has not been released before that show the police officers being beaten. They may call some of those Capitol Hill police, because in the last impeachment trial that we had for this president, the Republicans were in charge of the Senate, and they did not allow any witnesses in the Senate in the trial. And this time the Democrats are in charge. So we may see witnesses. I know that the gentleman who's known as QAnon Shaman that was arrested with the buffalo head on helmet on, he has said that he would like to testify at the impeachment trial. So it's interesting. There's been, I've heard it advised. Jonathan Turley, the leaning right constitutional scholar, his recommendation was that Trump not even answer the impeachment at all. That's what his recommendation was. Just say it's not constitutional and just ignore it. But there's going to be a trial, and the question is going to be when push comes to shove and the Republican senators have to take a vote, it's going to look pretty bad when they're basically voting on the side of insurrection.
Right. Now, I want to cross one item off and kind of clarify this a little bit. So the Constitution says you need 2/3 of senators present and voting on an article of impeachment are necessary to convict. So what most people think that means is you need 67 votes because everybody's going to be present, right?
Right.
So the Washington Post did a really cool little breakdown of where people stand. And so currently 40 are in the support column. So that means they're ready to vote for conviction. 21 are open. So that gets you to 61. Now, if everybody shows up, that still leaves you 6 votes short. 37 opposed and 2 are unknown. So let's say those 2 jump in with the conviction side, you're still 4 short. Now, whether you can get all those or not, but if people like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley don't show up, then that lowers the threshold of how many votes you need to convict. And,
right.
And my guess is several of these Republicans who don't want to vote, like you said, on the side of anarchy, they're not going to show up on the day when the day comes to vote.
Yeah, Lawrence Tribe, the constitutional scholars back that theory too.
Yeah.
And said pretty consistently that it's 2/3 of those present.
Right.
So there could be some of them that say, I mean, that, and I think we talked about that on a podcast a while back, because that's the way for the Republicans to have their cake and eat it too.
Right.
Because somebody could say, I don't think this is constitutional, therefore I'm not going to show up. And then by not showing up, they're lowering the number of votes that are needed.
Right.
They get him convicted, and they say, well, that's on them, it's not on me. I didn't even want to participate.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting. I saw Chuck Schumer gave an interview where he said he wants it to be a thorough but quick trial. And I know they don't want to bog down the Biden agenda by having a 6-month trial or something like that. But it's going to be interesting. There's plenty of constitutional precedent, by the way, for trying people after they've resigned, after they've been out of office. And so it's happened in multiple cases. It's never happened for a president, but it's happened for judges. It's happened for other federal officials. So
right.
Plenty of precedent for it to happen. And it's funny. It's fun. Precedent's one of those funny things. It's people love it when it supports their idea, but they kind of ignore it when it doesn't.
Right. Yeah. The current Supreme Court is good at that.
Yes, absolutely. So speaking of the Biden agenda, another hot topic right now is the COVID relief package. And Biden's proposed around a $1.8 trillion package that includes everything from state and local government funding, a vaccine program to help get the vaccine produced more and distributed better, because by all intents and purposes and all evidence shows that the Trump plan has been a fiasco as far as getting the vaccine out. It's been a massive failure. The states have kind of been left up to themselves. They were promised the release of a stockpile, and then the former Health and Human Services Director, Azar, said, well, there is no stockpile.
Right.
And so there wasn't anything to release. So it's got that. It also has some elements in it, like a $15 minimum wage, rent moratorium, rent foreclosure moratorium, those kinds of things. And so all of a sudden, the Republicans, they've woken up from their Rip Van Winkle slumber when it comes to national debt and deficit spending, and they're suddenly concerned about spending.
Right.
For the last 4 years, they haven't been concerned one lick
about
how much money they spent. And in fact, the tax giveaway to the rich that was passed back in 2017 or 2018 was roughly the same amount that Biden's asking for here.
Yeah.
So they're saying, that Biden should not go with reconciliation, which would only require 51 votes to pass. And they're saying that's not a sign of unity. He should only pass something that can be bipartisan, We've got a group of 10 Republican senators who met with him at the White House today with their plan, which is about a third or less than a third, about $680 million or $1 billion for their plan, which takes out a bunch of the relief that Biden was pushing for. And so the question becomes, what should the Democrats do? Should they negotiate? Should they use reconciliation now? What say ye, G-Man?
I say do whatever it takes to get it through. Republicans weren't concerned about the deficit, which quadrupled under Trump from where Obama left it. They weren't concerned then. Why should they be concerned now?
I live by.
It's going to help people. I will tell you one thing in the provision that I think Republicans might have a good point on is Biden wants to give anybody on unemployment $600 a week. That's $1,200 a month. I mean, that's $2,400 a month. The Republicans want to give them $400. Well, if you're a minimum wage worker at a local restaurant, right? $600 a week, it might be 3 times what you're used to making. So there's, it just seems a little high to me after all this time. What do you think?
Well, on that particular case, we got to stimulate the economy, and so I say give people money. And so if it's going to stimulate the economy, help them. I mean, that's part of why the $15 minimum wage is included in the bill too, is to try to get the wages up to a living point. I mean, it's embarrassing that unemployment is more than some of these people make.
Yeah.
A lot of times people want to say, I can't believe they're taking the unemployment check instead of taking that lower check. And it's like, instead of focusing on the real issue, which is businesses are struggling to pay a higher wage. And so I think if we help small businesses, I think that'll help stimulate the economy more. When I think about this whole bill and how they should pass it and whether they should try to go with a filibuster proof majority, or if they should just go with reconciliation. I live by a simple credo, and I've been saying this since last fall, and I pledged I would do it. And we've got the tape, we can go back and roll it if we need to. But that credo, I don't know if I expressed it in this way, but it's WWMD. What would Moscow Mitch do?
Right.
And so I can tell you beyond the shadow of a doubt, if the shoe was reversed and Trump had won re-election and Mike Pence was sitting in the VP chair, Republicans with 50 seats, Mike Pence would be the tie-breaking vote. They would jam it through.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, it probably would have already been passed by now.
Right.
So I say it's pretty simple. I say you go to the Republicans, you say, this is the train that's leaving the station.
Yeah.
You either get on it or you vote against it. Right. You vote against it, we're going to campaign like hell against you in 2 years. And we're going to say, these are the people that didn't want you to get the $1,400 stimulus check. These are the people that didn't support small businesses. And something else that people forget when there's funding for state and local government, they forget that what that means a lot of times. It's funding for police departments, funding for fire departments. So it's pretty easy to go, they want to say we're the defund the police party. They're the ones who wouldn't vote for money to go to the police department.
Right.
And so I think you just play hardball and you say, we'd love for you guys to get on board, but if you won't, we're not going to hold it up. The country, there's too much. I mean, that was Obama's, one of his biggest mistakes was the first year in office when he tried to woo the Republicans. And they would say, I can remember the national DC press they would say, well, he's not doing enough. He's not inviting them over for movies. He's not having dinners at the White House. And then after John Boehner resigned and he wrote his book, there were multiple cases where Obama had invited him and they refused on purpose to go.
Right.
Just to try to make him look bad. And so what happens is you negotiate with people who have no intention on voting for your bill.
Right.
You look at the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare is a great example of this. Obama let the Republicans, they said, you cannot have a public option in the bill. if you have a public option in the bill, there's no way we'll vote for this. You've got to take it out. So what did he do? He negotiated it out.
Yeah.
We'll take it out if we can have, an individual mandate, and that'll make up for some of the math, and it makes it happen here, makes it happen there. Well, what happened? They all voted against it anyway.
Right.
Didn't get one Republican vote, or maybe one in the House. But so you got to, as a negotiation standpoint, you got to say they're not going to vote for it anyway. So why give them what they want?
Right. Yeah, I'm with you there. And everybody I've ever talked to that knows
And
anything
so,
about the economy, they say that giving money to the lower class and the lower middle class is really what stimulates the economy the most, because those people go out and spend money, and other people, upper middle class will use it to pay off bills, or, stash in their retirement fund or something.
yeah, I think we're just at a point where with COVID and with the economy on the brink of a really big disaster, we need this relief, and we need it now.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Speaking of relief, you know who I think could also use some relief right now?
Yeah, who's that?
Ronna Romney McDaniel, chairperson of the grand old party, the Republican Party, just got reelected. I think she thought everything's going to be hunky dory. We'll have our little insurrection in DC, then everybody go home, everybody forget, everybody's happy. We can just go back to obstructing the Democrats, and
Right.
everything's going to be good. Little problem though, we had a vote on impeachment, and 10 members of the House of Representatives, GOP members, voted in favor of impeachment.
Yep.
And it's the most of a sitting president's party to ever vote for impeachment, by the way.
Yep.
One of those being the third person in line of leadership of the House Republican caucus, Liz Cheney.
Yep.
And so we've definitely got some GOP divisions when you've got Liz Cheney, who made she talked about it being a vote of conscience, about how appalled she was by the behavior of the president, the worst thing she's ever seen a president do. And then on the flip side of that coin, we have the new Congresswoman from North Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, that she's been a vocal proponent of QAnon, conspiracy theories. Mitch McConnell tonight referred to her as the believer of loony theories and crazy theories. And some of the statements that she's made about not wearing a mask, refusing to go through a metal detector, wanting to carry her gun on the House floor, and overall encouraging the insurrection, and possibly being one of the House members to give a tour when they weren't supposed to be giving tours the day before the insurrection as well. Mark a difference in the Republican Party about who's speaking out against Cheney and who's speaking out against Greene.
Right.
So far, we've heard, Matt Gaetz has gone to Wyoming to campaign in person against Congresswoman Cheney.
Yeah, they're talking about recalling her.
They're wanting to vote her out of leadership. They want to have a vote to get rid of that. And the response we've gotten on the other Congresswoman is the Minority Leader McCarthy says he's going to take her aside and have a talk with her.
Right. Well, because of one statement she made that they're all enthralled with. She said the best way to deal with Nancy Pelosi is a quick bullet to the head. And they all are like, amen. They won't say that in public. That's what they're thinking. And so that made her just this little goddess to them. And so, yeah, they're going to take her aside and have a little chat.
Yeah, it's appalling to me. And on top of that, they announced this week that they're going to give her a seat on the Education Committee.
Yeah. Which again, Saturday Night Live's cold open. It's on YouTube. Go watch it for this week because it's hilarious. And at the end of the segment, they use that as a reason to prove that the government no longer works.
Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think she's a pariah or she's a party star?
I think that they want her to be a party star, but I think the general public, I think the GOP is in its last throes. Now we've had political parties that have come and gone. The Democratic Party started out as the Republican Democrats, I think, under Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
Parties have changed through the years. We've had the Whigs and they disappeared. But I think we're seeing the last gasp of the Republican Party. I think it's going to split in two. I think, um, you know, Mitch might be its elder statesman for another year or two, and then, he's going to go away as far as power and stuff. I mean, I think by 2028, we'll have a totally different party, whether that's the Tea Party or the Insurrection Party or whatever you
Right.
want to call it. But all of these people that think insurrection was the right thing to do and that back those guys storming the Capitol, they're going to go off on a party on their own. And there's, it's hard to say and hard for me to believe, but there's a ton of people that are going to fall into that category, mostly white. And then whatever's left, the few black Republicans and the centrists and the ones that lean towards the Democrats a little bit, or at least agree with them, they're going to have their own party. So that's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that there's a certain constituency in that party that feels like that chaos and anarchy is the way to go.
Yep.
And it's all based on the fact that if they don't win, that they should get a right to overturn that and be able to be the people. I mean, there are people who are basically running scared, and
Yep.
And it's it's mind-boggling to me, and I believe it goes back to Donald Trump and his lack of leadership, or I shouldn't say, in some cases it may be his leadership, but it's just his leadership for evil intentions. The
Right.
fact that the whole COVID-19 was politicized the way it was. It never should have been politicized. I wanted to read you a quote from a state legislature, and this is what they said. Quote, "We want to be engaged." This is the legislative leader. I'm not going to tell you what state it is. "We think the legislature has a role whenever you try to and quarantine healthy people or try to shut down people's businesses and say people are essential and some are not. It's possible, but I don't think it's good. We're the ones who give them the authority to do what they do." And this is all based on a resolution of this legislature against the sitting governor of this state. And it's the state of Idaho. And the Republicans in the Idaho legislature are claiming that the Republican governor there is acting like a Nazi by putting quarantines and mask mandates in place, all for public health issues. And it's just insanity that the Republican Party's gone this far. I saw some numbers the other day where they said, I think in the state of, in the states of Pennsylvania, Georgia, it's basically the usual suspects. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and maybe Florida was included in the number, but it's something like 40,000 people have re-registered and unregistered as Republicans and either registered as independents or Democrats.
Right.
And so you're going to see more people doing that, and people that just say, I can't support this. I can't support the insurrection. I can't support Marjorie Taylor Greene. And Donnie Deutsch, the marketing guy who is on your favorite show a lot, Morning Joe, he was talking the other day, and he was talking about that he felt like she, from a pure political standpoint, she's a gift to the Democrats, because they should ask about her every time. They should refer to her as Republican Congresswoman, Republican Congresswoman, Republican Congresswoman.
Right. Well, she pairs well with our whack job representative from the Western Slope.
That's true. Yeah, that's a pair there. I didn't know who would out crazy who, but I think so far, with the belief in the Jewish lasers from space starting the California wildfires, that MJT may be the winner. Or MTG, sorry, I got it wrong.
Well, if California had just raked all the forests, they wouldn't have those fires like Trump suggested.
Craziness. Well, that just about takes us to the end of our time today. We've got a lot of big things happening in the next week. Like we said, the impeachment trial will begin. We'll know more about whether Democrats plan to use reconciliation soon on the bill,
Yeah.
the COVID relief bill. More of the cabinet will continue to be confirmed. There hasn't been any big surprises when it comes to the cabinet nominations so far. Everybody's pretty much sailed through. Um,
I,
and
I haven't, I haven't seen, did his Homeland pick get through?
it passed out of committee. It had to go to committee because Holly objected to it, and it
Right.
did pass out of committee over. It was a party line vote, but it passed out. Well, actually, it was. I think there were actually some Republicans that voted for him because he's a great nominee.
Right.
So he should be coming out. Neera Tanden was one they were trying to go after because she'd said mean stuff about people on Twitter.
Right.
But I predict she'll get confirmed as well. And then as with always, there were I think I saw about 80 judges that have submitted their resignations that were more of a liberal bent. They were holding out, hoping that Democrat would win the election.
Right.
And so those judicial nominees will get through, and we'll be on Supreme Court watch because I would expect Stephen Breyer to retire at the end of this term.
Yep. That's the rumor.
And then you've also got both Thomas and Alito in their 70s. And Thomas, I mean, I don't know his health, but he doesn't look like he's in very good shape.
Well, he's woefully overweight, and we know what overweight can do to you.
And he's a crab apple.
Right. And he's a smoker. He smokes cigars. So all that, is a perfect recipe for a major heart attack.
Yeah, so you never know. So we'll be on those cases, but we'll be back soon again. Everybody, take care. All accounts by the medical experts say that we're going into the darkest time when it comes to COVID because of all the mutations that are out there. So let's make sure and everybody be sure and wear them. If you go out, wear a mask. Just do it. It's not political. It's not Democrat. It's not Republican. It's the right thing to do. Protect yourself, protect others. And when it's your time to get the vaccine, please do so as well.
Amen to that. All right. Good night, everybody.
Everybody take care.